Rachel has finally delivered her much awaited budget. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the things that impact us Amazon FBA sellers. So I've got a few things to go through, most of them negative. I've got one positive thing to look at and also 2 Black Friday offers at the end. So stick around for those. So the first one, this one kind of snuck under the radar a little bit. And this is the one that's going to impact us Amazon FBA sellers the most probably. So changes to tax rates for property, savings and dividend income. This is the big one, the dividend income bit, because this is how most people that operate an Amazon FBA business in the UK will pay themselves. They'll have a limited business, they'll pay themselves a basic salary, and then they'll pay dividends on top of that. So the government is raising rates of tax on property, savings, and dividend income to ensure income for assets is taxed more fairly. Now, I don't want to get too hung up on my actual political views on this, so I'm just going to focus on the facts. Tax on dividend income will increase by 2 percentage points. The ordinary rate will rise from 8.75% to 10.75%, and it shows the other ones here that are going up. And I think this is a pretty crappy change. It stifles entrepreneurship. You know, people like to make the argument that we don't get taxed as much as employees do, but as entrepreneurs, you are taking a greater risk. You know, we don't get holiday pay, we don't get sick pay. We're the ones that are taking a risk to grow businesses, to grow the economy. So let's just stick another 2% tax on the dividend. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this change, and I wanted to cover this first as a lot of people who are watching this video who either plan to start an Amazon business or a different type of business one day will eventually probably pay themselves dividends. So it's important to know that the government is continuing to squeeze us. Now, on top of this, we have the freeze on personal allowance, which is probably has been given a lot more coverage in the news as it impacts more people. It impacts pretty much all employees. So as a director of your own limited company, you're going to pay yourself a base income first, which is this £12,570. And then you pay dividends on top. Now what they've done, they've extended this allowance freeze for another 3 years. So it usually goes up in line with inflation, there or thereabouts, but it's been frozen for quite a few years already. It was supposed to be frozen until 2028, and now they've extended it for another 3 years. At the budget, the government confirmed that it would extend the freeze to 29, 30, and 31. What does this mean? Well, basically this creates something called fiscal drag. So when your earnings go up, via inflation or above inflation pay rises hopefully, but the tax thresholds pay the same, more of your income falls into the taxable section of that. So you pay more tax. And there's quite an interesting fact here. If the personal allowance had been adjusted in line with inflation, it would currently be £15,480, a difference of £2,910. So already, because they've been freezing it already, you're paying tax on nearly £3,000 that you wouldn't have been paying in the past. And they're going to freeze it, well, what are we up to? 30, 31. For the next 6 years, this is frozen. So you're going to pay more tax on your income and more tax on your dividends. Now, the next one, this is actually a piece of good news, but it's probably not going to come in for another few years. So this consultation announces the removal of the £135 customs duty. I think this is called de minimis. It's a technical term for this. And this is a relief for low-value imports and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, currently low-value imports goods with a value of £135 or less being imported into the UK can claim a customs duty relief. VAT is due on these goods following reforms in 2021. So the reason this is interesting for us Amazon sellers is companies like AliExpress, Temu, Shein, or Shen, however you want to say it, they currently take full advantage of this. They ship in low value goods, and that's why stuff is so cheap on those websites. So if they're going to make those guys start paying customs duty on those imports, it's not a huge amount of money, but it does make them have to put their prices up a little bit, which means as Amazon sellers, you know, UK sellers are importing into the UK and actually paying customs duty because we're buying in bulk well above that £135 threshold. It helps even the playing field just a fraction, not a huge amount, but this is only guaranteed to come in by 2029. So at some point in the next 3 to 4 years, but I don't know why it needs to take that long. Next up, you've probably heard this one and you're probably thinking, well, why do you care about this as an Amazon seller? The consultation on the introduction of electric vehicle excise duty. So this is the 3p per mile that's been all over the papers and all over the news. And I want to cover it for 2 reasons. One, I think this is just basically a gateway drug to everyone, both petrol, diesel, as well as electric, eventually being pay per mile. But 2, a lot of business owners, we drive EVs purely because of the tax breaks. So this introduction does make it slightly less appealing. So I've got some stats here. Here we go. If you do 5,000 miles per year, it's going to cost you an extra £150. So if you do 10,000 miles per year, that's going to be £300, which I think works out about £25 a month, which isn't ideal. But still, if you do the overall maths, if you're doing 10,000 miles a year, you're still saving substantially more than £25 per month if you're running an EV versus a petrol or diesel car based on the fuel element alone. I don't want to get too hung up on kind of the cost of the cars because EVs have quite high list prices. But it's certainly something to bear in mind that I think this will impact the adoption of EVs and it will make it less appealing. And when you combine this with something that wasn't necessarily spoken about in the budget because this was announced a while back, the benefit in kind tax continues to go up for EVs. So zero CO2 cars, you can see. When I first got an EV a few years ago, the benefit in kind rate was 0%. There was no benefit in kind tax to pay on having a company car. And it's up to 2% at the moment, 3%, 4%, 5%. So by the time this comes in, if this comes in 2028, 2029, and we're up at 7% benefit in kind tax, you can see we're still substantially below putting a petrol or diesel through the business, but it's still going to make it less appealing. So something to be aware of. And this next one is an interesting one. Business rates to be permanently lowered for retail, hospitality and leisure properties. And this is for properties with a rateable value below 500,000. So why does that matter to us Amazon FBA sellers? Well, my gut feel on this is because they've said, look, this reduction will be funded by higher business rates multiplier for properties with a value of £500,000 or more. I can easily see the situation where companies like Amazon with their massive warehouses who have to pay this additional surcharge just go, we're going to pass this straight on to our sellers, just like they did with the digital services tax. So keep an eye out for that. I would not be surprised to see Amazon make an excuse and start charging you an extra fee for some sort of business rate increase. And then the final one, and obviously this is going to apply to everyone that follows this channel and starts their own Amazon FBA business at some point, and that is the mansion tax that's coming in for properties worth more than £2 million. I know obviously I'm joking at the moment, but if we scroll down, these are what the rates are going to be. Properties from 2 to 2.5 mil, 2,500, all the way up to if your property's worth more than 5 million, it's going to be 7.5 grand. So lots of things to keep in mind if you are an Amazon FBA seller or you're thinking about starting Amazon FBA or you're thinking about starting any business. They are continuing to squeeze us. So the 2 Black Friday offers I have for you on the FBA Elite course, you can currently save £100 with the code BlackFriday100. There is a link in the pinned top comment. And also Helium 10 are running a Black Friday offer, which is pretty much the best discount I've seen all year. You can get 40% off for the first 12 months. You do not need to sign up for 12 months. You can pay monthly and cancel anytime. So if you are starting Amazon FBA or you already sell on Amazon, this is probably the best time to sign up because it's going to make it cheap for the next 12 months. And again, there'll be a link in the pinned top comment. Now, if you want to start your own Amazon FBA business, but you haven't found your first product yet, and you want to watch a video that's going to show you how to use Helium 10 to find your first product, I'm going to pop up a link to that video now, and I'll see you guys over there.